3 weeks ago, the Vixen and the War met in a critical regular season matchup for both teams. And in what should have been a surprise to no one, it was fireworks from the outset, as the two leading offenses in the WFA combined for 18 touchdowns and 125 points, with the War fighting back from 11 points down with just 2 minutes remaining to pull out the 64-61 win. That win closed out the regular season for the War and locked them into the second spot in the playoff picture behind the undefeated St. Louis Slam, who occupied the top spot. But on the other side for the Vixen, that left them momentarily on the precipice in the playoff picture. With one game still remaining on their schedule, they needed a win, and they came up with a big win against the Nebraska Pride, blanking the Pride 35-0. And with that win, the Vixen earned another shot here in Playa del Rey against the Cali War, and a shot to redeem themselves after they were so close 3 weeks ago. We are underway from Playa del Rey. Game time temperature of 68 degrees. The winds once again up as they were 3 weeks ago, just under 10 miles an hour on average, but that will be accentuated certainly down at field level as it was 3 weeks ago. So could be some difficulties throwing the ball, but both these teams have been outstanding running the football all season long, and that was especially the case 3 weeks ago. Gave you a brief look at the playoff picture. It's underway tonight. All 4 playoff matches going on here tonight, and we'll try to update you on the playoff picture, if not the scores in those matchups. Williams with the first carry on the end around has some running room, picking her way forward down the near side inside the 30-yard line of the Vixen. The two teams combined for nearly 1,000 yards rushing between the two, and that was led by Brianna Barrett with an almost otherworldly 452 yards rushing for the War. Nori Washington, oh, by the way, also over 100 yards for the War. And the Vixen were just about as good, keeping up. Shy Rhodes, the second leading rusher in the WFA, was over 100 yards, and Paige Kuplick over 200 yards and 5 touchdowns. So we can certainly talk about the offenses, and we will here tonight. But the real question is, which defense will find a way to slow down the opposing offense? That will likely tell the story here tonight. Opening minute, Washington on the carry, down to the 21-yard line. Leaves a second and short. They need about 3 to get to the 18-yard line. Well, stops were few and far between for these defenses back on June 7th. Haven't seen a carry yet for Barrett. Trouble on the snap, but the War will fall on it. Nonetheless, a third down, now in about 7 as Washington falls on it back at the 24. Turnovers were a storyline. 3 turnovers in the first half for the Vixen helped the War really to stay in it in the first half as the Vixen jumped out to a lead. But the War defense did manage to force those 3 turnovers. One of them a big return on an interception by Alyssa Williams, creating a short field to keep the game tight into the second half. Barrett, first touch on the end around, has the first down, picks up a block inside the 15, fighting off tacklers inside the 10. Barrett ripping off a chunk gain on her first touch, over 17 yards a carry on the season for Brianna Barrett. Talked about the 452 yards. She finished with 1,203 yards, far and away the leader over the regular season in the WFA. Shy Rhodes was actually second at 703 yards, so Barrett pulled away with a ridiculous run over the last 3 weeks. Washington bouncing it to the outside. She's got running room, and she'll take it in. The first touchdown belongs to the War, taking advantage of the short kickoff, the relatively short field. They spread it around, and it's Nori Washington with the touchdown run to give the War the lead with 12:31 remaining in the opening period. And we're picking up right where we left off back on the evening of June 7th. As it is advantage offense once again, Washington able to bounce that to the outside. And by the time Sherry Flugel was in the area, Washington was at the goal line and in for the touchdown. And the War, as they will do, will line up to go for two. Barrett on the carry, and she is stuffed behind the line. And that could be important. You go back to the matchup on June 7th, each team came up with 9 touchdowns. So ultimately the difference in the game was on conversions, where the War were 5 of 9 on 2-point conversions. Meanwhile, the Vixen mixed in extra points along with 2-point attempts and ultimately fell 3 points short. So that's how close it was back on June 7th, that there was no difference for the most part offensively, but rather came down to conversion. So obviously a long way to go, but plays like that could ultimately be the difference. That's how close this matchup is for the War. The win back earlier in the regular season snapped a 3-game losing streak against the Vixen. Going back from years 2021 to 2023, the two teams didn't meet in 2024. But the War finally got off the schneid against the Vixen, but it took some doing. And really all 4 matchups between the two teams have been extremely close, and we expect more. Hyber on the return. Brought down at the 36. Good field position. We'll keep an eye as the Vixen come on. Aaron Kelly, the longtime starter at quarterback for the Vixen, didn't go a week ago. The word that we got was that she would be a game-time decision. I believe I saw that she was warming up down at field level, and now it is Aaron Kelly coming out. Solveig Lundberg, the backup quarterback, is on the field, split out wide to the right, but it's Kelly who will go, and that's exactly what you would expect from the longtime signal caller who had a big performance earlier in the season with 4 touchdown passes in the loss. Kuplik running right, bouncing off a couple of tacklers. Second effort doesn't yield her a whole lot more. She picks up about 4 to the 40. It brings up a 2nd down and 6. Well, Kuplik, were it not for the insane performance of Brianna Barrett, would have certainly been the story of the first matchup between the two teams, with 5 rushing touchdowns and over 200 yards rushing in the game. As the Vixen not only hung around, but as we mentioned at the top, carried an 11-point lead into the final 2 minutes. That's how close they were to extending the winning streak against the War. But just too much Brianna Barrett down the stretch. A couple of late touchdowns, and the War get the win. First throw for Kelly, fires and completes, finds her favorite target, Radford, with the reception into War territory at the 36, and it's a bullet from EK. Didn't play in the regular season finale against the Nebraska Pride. Didn't hurt the Vixen much as they pulled away for the 35-0 win. But a strong throw from Kelly on her first attempt and finds Radford. Jackie Radford, leading receiver for the Vixen on the season, and actually tied for the lead in the WFA in receiving touchdowns with 8 on the year. Do have a timeout down on the field. Step away very quickly. 11:22 remaining in the opening quarter. 6-0, the War on top. First and 10 for the Vixen in War territory at the 37. Kelly with Kuplik in the pistol formation. The give to Kuplik, trying to stretch to the near side, able to slip out of a tackle and get some positive yardage. A shot in the backfield for Kenesha Moore, but Kuplik too strong. Breaks the tackle and turns it into an 8-yard gain. 2nd and a short 2. Haven't seen Shy Rhodes yet. A change in the backfield for the Vixen. Ray Jefferson on in the backfield as Kelly will get the call. Clock moving, 10:54 and counting remaining. We're just underway. The WFA playoffs here from Playa del Rey, Cali War, Minnesota Vixen. 3 wide receivers for Kelly on this 2nd and 2 play. Straight drop, pressure comes, and Kelly just has to get rid of this one. The War looking for an intentional grounding. Not much going on out there in the flat. Lundberg was running a deeper pattern, and now the very late flag comes in. Going to look at this one more time, but yeah, I think Kelly just looking to avoid the sack, and there's the call. Penalty is much more of a problem for the War in the first matchup between the two teams. The Vixen, very few penalties in that matchup. But the first one here tonight goes against the Vixen. And it leaves a 3rd and 8. Football resting at the Cali War 35. Kuplik back on in the backfield. They overload the near side on 3rd and 8. It's Kuplik on the give. Good hold on the left side. Kuplik rumbling, but now loses the football. It's still loose. No signal yet. The War have it. Well, Kuplik was rumbling downhill. A big hole, and right here goes to make the switch and loses the football. Well, that's a heartbreaker for the Vixen, as Kuplik not only had the first down, but significantly more. There might have been no stopping her. Heading for the end zone, but trying to get that football to the outside. Loses the handle, and the War, with a fortunate turnover, get the stop, and now can extend on the lead. Well, multi-score leads were few and far between for either team in the matchup earlier this season. They fake and go to the end around again. A gain of just a couple. Dixon on the stop. Williams on the carry. The Vixen banged up defensively, certainly, with the loss of Caitlin Hill and Emily Sampson for the season. Caitlin Hill, the former Defensive Player of the Year back in 2019, and Sampson, the leading tackler on the season when she went down. So a couple of big losses, and the Vixen having to pick it up, certainly, but they did in the win against the Pride in the regular season finale, as they blanked the Pride for the 2nd time on the season. So a good bounce back, certainly. Running once again to the near side and not much doing. Caitlin Hove playing both ways, and the sure tackle on the carry by Kiara Allen. A loss of 3 brings up a 3rd and 11, and certainly that amps up the pressure on Brianna Barrett, and you got to believe Barrett will get a touch here. Well, for those that watched the game, obviously Barrett was sensational, but the one thing you certainly could take away watching that was not just the speed and the elusiveness of Barrett, but the power. A number of broken tackles, carry after carry. Running to the right side with a head of steam and brought down short of the first down marker, a gain of about 6. The Vixen with a big stand defensively, forced the quick 3 and out. Well, I should say they forced the 4th down. The War, as might similarly be the case with points after the touchdown, going to eschew a punt even from this part of the field. And they will go for it as they play 4 downs from just about anywhere. And they'll line up to go for it after the 5-yard run leaves a 4th and 6. But just to finish the point on Barrett, entirely too many broken tackles for the Vixen, trying to bring down Barrett And you've got to believe as they string this one out, and Barrett forced out of bounds, and now the Vixen have the stop. But it'll be interesting to see here tonight if the Vixen really fly to the football and try to get multiple hats on Brianna Barrett, because one-on-one wasn't getting it done back on June 7th. And it is going to take a couple of white jerseys or more to contain Brianna Barrett. And certainly on that series of downs, the Vixen able to aggressively pursue Barrett, and they get the stop. The turnover on downs gives it back to the Vixen at the War 32. 7:50 remaining in the opening period, a 6-0 lead for the War. Delayed handoff, first carry for Rhodes, weaving her way forward near the first down marker, brought down a couple of yards shy. First carry for Rhodes. And Shy Rhodes averaging just under 9 yards a carry in her 5th season for the Vixen. Leaves a 2nd and 2 and a lot of options for Kelly as Rhodes will remain in the backfield. They send Anderson in motion to the right side. Rhodes running right, has blocking, first down and more. Rhodes around the edge. And a big hit on Rhodes knocks her out of bounds, but not before. She rips off a solid gain, takes it all the way down to the 10-yard line where it'll be 1st and goal for the Vixen. Clock moving, under 7 minutes to go. Well, they set it up on the right side, and both these offensive lines certainly deserve a lot of credit. Exceptional run blocking, and again there on the right side, all kinds of room for Rhodes, trying to cut it back, breaks a couple of tackles. Rhodes still churning the legs down inside the 5 to the 4. That's good hard running from Erica Rhodes. Leaves a 2nd and goal from the 4. But Marissa Akinsai, Sammy Kraus on the right side of that Vixen offensive line, creating all kinds of room for Rhodes. That time the War did a pretty good job of blowing up the play, but it was a great individual effort from Rhodes to pick up positive yardage. 6 yards as Kuplick returns in the backfield on 2nd and goal from the 4. Receivers left and right. Kelly, the give to Kuplick, running right, and Kuplick easily in. The Vixen tie it up and will look for the lead. Do have whistles at the end of the play and a timeout. A War player down over on the near side will step aside. Kuplick, her first touchdown tonight, all tied at 6. It's the WFA playoffs on SoCalCollegeSports.com. Sparkle Doucette, the injured player for the War, and certainly that a critical part of the War defense. The extra point good, but Doucette over on the sidelines and up and on her feet. So preliminarily, obviously, it's a good sign, but Sparkle Doucette, one of the key playmakers for the War defensively all season long. And there a look back at the hard running from Rhodes, and then Kuplick finishes it off, continues to enjoy Playa del Rey after 5 touchdowns earlier in the month. Another one there. And Kuplick in something of a statistical oddity. Now up to 7 touchdowns on the season, but 6 of them have come against the Cali War. And the Vixen grabbed the 7-6 lead, under 6 minutes to go here in the first period. And already a back-and-forth affair early. here in Playa del Rey. Pooch kick once again. They try to keep it out of the hands of Barrett, obviously, but they give up the good field position, very good field position into Vixen territory. A strong return all the way down to the Vixen 40. As that one taken by Jocelyn Howard, and Howard finds running room. They'll spot it at the 39. Well, obviously, the decision to play away from Brianna Barrett makes a lot of sense. But you do pay a price, especially when Howard is able to make you pay with the solid return and a very short field for the War, who will look for the lead. Kiara Allen on for the War on the near side. Nori Washington in the backfield. Chantel Wiggins at the controls for the War. 1st and 10. Inside handoff to Barrett. A collision in the backfield, but Barrett stays on her feet and is able to pick her way forward for a gain of about 5. Again, Dixon on the stop. In fact, Barrett churned out 7 yards, leaves a 2nd down and 3. Some confusion perhaps in the backfield. And now we're getting the call. Is that a penalty they called? Okay, 2nd and 5. Okay, so it's about 5 yards from the 34. Washington solo in the backfield. Barrett in the slot on the left side. The War in the home black jerseys, working it right to left. Washington, a little hesitation, now finds some running room, has the 1st down. Inside the 25, down to the 23. Good hard running from Nori Washington. 2nd leading rusher for the War on the season. Averages a little over 5 yards a carry. Has the 1st down, the clock moves. They'll spot it at the Vixen 23. Washington remains in the backfield. Receivers left and right. Fresh set of downs for the War. Snap to Wiggins. The fake, now the give to Williams. Circling to the near side. Able to avoid the big loss. Well shy of the 1st down marker. A gain of about 4. There was a shot there for Jocelyn Tanner. But Williams able to slip the tackle in the backfield and pick up some positive yardage. Williams becoming one of the key playmakers for the War as this season rolls on. Certainly a favorite target through the air for Chantel Wiggins, as Brianna Barrett has become more and more exclusively a runner for the War. The give on the right side to Washington, dragged down after a gain of a couple. Quickly to the ball, Jessica Bartlett. Sure tackle on Washington brings up a 3rd down. Call it 3rd and about 6, gonna say. The War are back in the red zone, where they've been so effective, and certainly part of the problem for the Vixen here is 3rd and 6, but it's all 4-down territory. Sean Caldwell in the backfield. So you got to come up with a stop here against the War on 2 plays from the 19. It's Caldwell running left, looking for a block with the stiff arm, but forced out of bounds. Hove able to string it out, not much doing for Caldwell, and now it'll be 4th down and about 4. Give Caldwell a couple of yards. See the strength, but a good job by Hove riding Caldwell out of bounds. Clock moving. They'll wind it, 2:39 and counting remaining in the 1st period. And the War already 0 of 1 on 4th down here tonight. They face a 4th and 4. Caldwell still in the backfield, but it's Barrett running right. Barrett looking for the corner, but not going to get there. And the Vixen come up big again defensively. Candace Bostic able to take Barrett out of bounds. A loss of a couple on the play, and the Vixen get the ball back. Well, give Connor Lewis and this Vixen team a lot of credit. They have taken something from the first matchup of the two teams. And obviously, at least initially, doing a much better job against Brianna Barrett. And that time quickly to the football, and Bostic able to hold Barrett not only shy of the first down, but short of the line of scrimmage. A loss on the play. And the Vixen have come up with two big fourth quarter stops here in this opening period, and now the pressure shifts to the War defense, who need a stop. Looking for Radford, and the throw off line and incomplete. Brings up a 2nd down and 10. And that just the second throw for Kelly, and maybe the first time that the wind could have possibly been a factor. That one well offline, no chance for Radford. Brings up a 2nd down and 10. Kuplick in the backfield. Kelly has 3 wide receivers to the near side. And a flag before the snap, could be backing up 5 yards here. So this will cost the Vixen 5 yards. And it'll bring up a 2nd down and 15. Now they'll switch the 2 wide receivers to the far side on 2nd and 15. Quick pitch on the end around. Radford on the carry. Cuts it back, finds running room out past the 30 to the 32. That's very near the first down. Good running for Jackie Radford. And Radford just 2 carries on the season for 28 yards. So it's been effective, but not a play that's been called a whole bunch. And that time, the Vixen break it out, facing a 2nd and long. And it works to perfection as they erase the 2nd and 15, and they have the first down. And Kelly has the snap. Quick pitch to Kuplick running left. Kuplick picks up a block, has the first down, rumbling down the far side. Finally brought down, but not before another first down for Paige Kuplick and the Vixen. Now getting it moving. Back-to-back sizable gains. They'll spot it back at the Vixen 45. Still enough for a first down. And the Vixen want to move quickly as we wind down toward a minute to go in the first period. Quick snap to Kelly. Kuplick once again on the counter. Breaks a tackle. Kuplick still on her feet. Has the first down into War territory down to the 40. Looked like Doucette perhaps had a shot at Kuplick. Let's watch one more time here. The good hard running. But the second effort, Kuplick not to be denied. 15 yards and a first down. War players slow to get up. It's Jamie Robinson. And Robinson going to try to hobble off. And now the whistles come in. Under a minute to go in the opening period. And saw Jamie Robinson similarly in our last broadcast, in the previous matchup between these two teams, battling a lower leg injury in that one as well. Did ultimately return, but a key cog for the War, both offensively and defensively. 39 seconds remaining in the opening period. Quick timeout from Playa del Rey. It's WFA playoffs on SoCal College Sports. No, we're going to keep it here. All right, just back. As Robinson will head off. 1st and 10 for the Vixen. Likely to run one more play here in the first period. They have it in war territory at the 40. Rhodes in the backfield. Dvorak in motion. Rhodes on the carry. Runs into a wall at the line of scrimmage. Antoinette borders Frazier among the first to get there. And the veteran defensive tackle. And Grandma. Able to stone Rhodes for no gain on the final play of the first period. Through one. The Vixen on top of the Cali War 7-6. It's the WFA playoffs here on SoCalCollegeSports.com. Start of the second quarter, and a 2nd and 10 for the Vixen. And already both defenses having more success, certainly, in the rematch between these two teams than they had back on June 7th. And the Vixen carry the 7-6 lead into the second quarter. Rhodes in the backfield as Kelly brings the Vixen to the line for a 2nd and 10 play. They'll overload the near side. Play action, quick screen, and incomplete. Coming out of the backfield, looking for Ray Jefferson. Jefferson, who saw some time at quarterback in the victory over the Pride on the 14th. With EK not available, it was Lundberg and Jefferson who saw her first action at quarterback on the season. But Kelly suiting up, going here tonight. Now faces a 3rd and 10, deep drop, good protection. Kelly fires the near side, incomplete. Looking for Hove, and the rookie can't corral it. And the drive stalls for the Vixen, so the War needed a stop, and they got it. Jocelyn Howard had the coverage, and it looked to me like Sanfrey Roberson, the starter at corner for much of the season, not available here tonight. So Howard pressed into action, saw the good return for Howard on special teams, and that time with the coverage on Hove, and the Vixen going to line up to go for it on 4th and 10 from the 40. Play action, Kelly. Again, good protection, looking over the middle for Jefferson, and it's incomplete, and I'm not sure even if Kelly is able to find Jefferson there. Well short of the first down, and War defenders nearby. So the Vixen will turn it over on downs, and now the War have the stop they were looking for. And they'll go back to work, down by just one. And yeah, hard to argue with the strategy there for Connor Lewis and the Vixen. Got the likes of Brianna Barrett on the other side. Short and long fields take on a little less significance. Barrett is able to make even the longest of fields pretty short. And so the Vixen will like to take a shot on a 4th and 10 from the War 40 to keep the drive alive, but can't do it.
4 wide receivers, empty backfield for Wiggins. Wiggins will look to throw. Lofts on the near side, off the hands of a receiver and picked off. And the Vixen have the big turnover. Paige Condi, the linebacker, dropping back into coverage. And this, let's look at it one more time here. But Wiggins look to have this throw online, but just off the hands. One more look here, and yeah, maybe a little high for Williams. And right there, Condi in the right spot. Now each team with a turnover, the Vixen get it back immediately. And they have it at the War 37, 1st and 10. Wiggins, back on June 7th in windy conditions, pretty solid throwing the football, 7 of 11 with a touchdown in the game under tough conditions, again, for both quarterbacks to throw the football. And that one perhaps a little high, but Williams had both mitts on it, couldn't bring it in. Meanwhile, Rhodes on the carry, weaving her way forward, very close to the first down, and looks as though she has it, and she does. 12 yards to the War 25, early going second quarter. And the Vixen leading by 1 and on the move. And now it's Rhodes starting to pile up the yardage. Again, she went over 100 yards in the first matchup. Second leading rusher in the WFA, over 700 yards. Sensational third year back, running right. Now lowers the shoulder, pushes the pile down close to another first down. This is a gain of about 9 for Rhodes. Good hard running, leaves a 2nd and 1. Slow to get up, but ultimately up. Sparkle Doucette again, and we saw Doucette leave the field with an injury on the touchdown earlier. But going to remain in the game, 2nd and short. They send Dvorak in motion, Kuplik on the right side. First down for Kuplik, down close to the War 10-yard line. Another first down following her right guard, Sammy Kraus. Good push again. And the Vixen offensive line having another solid performance going back to the matchup on June 7th. But not only have they run the ball well, but also done a great job protecting Aaron Kelly. We've got a timeout on the field. The Vixen on top, 7-6, the WFA playoffs on SoCalCollegeSports.com. Second down. Well, they're going to say that Kuplik got the first down. So 1st and goal from the 10, back to Kuplik on the right side. And Kuplik again moving the pile inside the 5, a gain of about 6. Leaves a 2nd and goal. And I think if you're the Vixen here, got to keep it on the ground. Both quarterbacks have struggled early on throwing the football. Again, another windy evening here in Playa del Rey. The counter to the left side, and Kuplik cut down. Got back to the line, perhaps. Good job up front. And a good response. Looked like it might have been Smitty. Yeah, I want to say that was Smitty Jones wearing jersey 4, but as luck would have it, we don't have a jersey 4 on our roster. So in any event, brings up a 3rd and goal. It was a loss of a yard. Now back to Kuplik. They'll try the left side again and again. The War there quickly. Coming off the edge, Layla Rivers from that left defensive end spot. And watch Rivers here, reading the play well. And they get contact on Kuplik behind the line. Kuplik managed to fall forward and get back to the line, but it brings up a 4th and goal from the 5. I should say a little bit inside the 5. I'm going to spot this closer to the 3. And a huge play upcoming for the Vixen, who will pass on the field goal attempt, which would be just 20 yards, and instead they will line up to go for it here from the War 3. The quick slant, and it's incomplete. Looking for Dvorak. And this pass never really had a chance. A lot of traffic. You see Caldwell there as well, and you got to believe that Aaron Kelly sensed Caldwell dropping into coverage. That was a tight window and not much chance. And now both defenses have come up with 2 fourth down stops in this first half. As the Vixen defense able to turn away the War a couple of times, and now the War defense have returned the favor. And both these defenses continue to carry the day here in the first half. Still a long way to go, 11:09 remaining in the second quarter. But a stark change from the first matchup between these two teams, especially the fourth quarter, where these two opposing offenses went crazy and really broke open that game, ultimately leading to the final score of 64-61. But here in this first half, each team so far with just a single touchdown. Short run for Washington, a gain of 3, leaves a 2nd down and 7. It'll be Washington remaining in the backfield. And Barrett, a quiet first half, had a solid run on her first carry, but then has been held completely in check since then. Washington with good running room on the left side has the first down out to the 14-yard line. That'll give the War some breathing room and will buy their defense a little time on the sideline as they'll get a fresh set of downs. As Washington picks up 10 yards. And the clock will move. Well, it'll be interesting to see as the Vixen seem to have shored things up defending the run at least early against Brianna Barrett. And you might forget Barrett weaving her way forward, breaks a couple of tackles, but then is stood up and driven back after a gain of about 3, and it will leave a 2nd down and 7. But Barrett, not just for the early part of this season, but for the last couple of seasons, has been a huge contributor, really leading the way as a receiver for the War. And might the War seek to change the dynamic, perhaps trying to get the ball to Barrett through the air. Right now, the Vixen have done a very good job defending Barrett on the run. Timeout on the field. 9:16 remaining in the first half. 7-6 Vixen on top. Second and 7 for the Cali War. Left guard Layla Rivers able to get to her feet and head off. Meanwhile, Jamie Robinson has returned for the War, lining up at the tight end spot on the right side. 2nd and 7, Washington on the carry. Slips out of a tackle in the backfield, falls forward for a gain of about 3.
Sophie Culhane in on the stop, along with Jessica Bartlett.
3rd and 4 for the War, and this potentially a big play. The War have it at their own 24-yard line, and if they don't pick it up here, they'll call it 3rd and 2. They need the 26 if they don't pick it up here. Will they line up to go for it on 4th down, deep in their own territory? On the reverse, Barrett gets the handoff from Washington and bounces off a couple of tacklers, has the 1st down. So it's a moot point in terms of going for it on 4th down, as good hard running from Brianna Barrett. And this is where you have to be so impressed with Brianna Barrett. Obviously has the speed and explosiveness and the big play ability, but this is what we saw an awful lot back on June 7th. It's just good hard running and breaking some tackles, yardage after contact, and a critical 3rd down pickup for the War. Continues the drive. Washington on the left side for a gain of about 3. Out to the 40. It'll leave a 2nd down and 7. And the War again content in a 1-point game to move at a more measured pace. And now they'll take a timeout with 7:13 remaining in the first half. It's the WFA playoffs here on SoCalCollegeSports.com. Second and 7. Bunch formation for the War from their own 40. And the misdirection again. Barrett trying to cut it back. Breaks a couple of tackles. And near the 1st down marker, it'll come down to the spot. And Barrett starting to run out of some of those tackles, but the Vixen continue to fly to the ball. Kyla Doby in that second wave eventually brings down Brianna Barrett, but she gets the 7 yards the War need for the 1st down. 1st and 10 from the War 47. Washington off tackle on the left side, moving the pile. Good hard running from Nori Washington and a gain of 6. Brings up a 2nd down and 4. Well, not much of a spot. Yeah, it's about 6 yards. Into Vixen territory at the Vixen 45. It'll be 2nd and a short 4. Also interesting to watch Brianna Barrett, who so often lines up in the slot. And they look to give her the ball in that jet sweep mold. Working around the edge. Williams on the end around. Looking for a block. Now picks up a couple of blocks and has the 1st down. And again, a War ball carrier in some trouble in the backfield, but able to evade and make something. In this case, a 1st down. Taking it to the Vixen 40. The gain of 5 will move the chains. But you see Barrett so often on that jet sweep cut it back very much by design and work more up the middle. And that, no doubt, is due in large part to Francine Loya, really leads this War offensive line. The veteran center anchors this offensive line, multiple-time All-American. And so they start Barrett on the side, but really a lot of running between the tackles, working behind Loya for all of these War ball carriers. Washington on the left side this time for a gain of 7. And now the War starting to run downhill on this drive that started all the way back at their own 3-yard line. They have it to the Vixen 33, facing a 2nd and 2. I should say a 2nd and 3. So it's not just the time off the clock that is giving that War defense a chance to recuperate on the sideline. But now moving into scoring territory as they have it at the Vixen 33. A 2nd and short. Delayed handoff to Barrett. Able to run out of a tackle. Barrett bouncing off tackles. Barrett inside the 20, down to the 10, and brought down just shy of the goal line at the 2. And Brianna Barrett starting to pile up the yardage after contact. Again, a couple of shots on Barrett as she initially gets the handoff. Watch here. Shedding 2-3 tackles and brought down just shy by Caitlin Hove. But that is good hard running, 31 yards for Brianna Barrett. And the War now have it at the Vixen 2-yard line, looking to go 97 yards to take the lead here late in the second quarter. Washington in the pistol formation. Washington straight ahead. She's got the touchdown. The War back in front. Nori Washington from 2 yards out. For Washington, her 5th touchdown on the season, her 2nd tonight. And the War back out in front, 12-7. They'll line up to go for 2. And again, conversions, the difference in the first matchup, and you have the feeling every bit as important tonight when maybe scores are going to be fewer and farther between. Quick slant looking for Williams. In from the left side, has it for the 2-point conversion. Interesting to watch Alyssa Williams line up on the left side. Of course, fans of the War might be aware that Alyssa Williams really can't see out of her right eye, and so often lines up on the right side, works back to the middle of the field to her left, where no doubt she picks up the ball a little bit better, but that time they move her to the left side. Still the sure hands, makes the catch. 2-point conversion for the War, and they lead it 14-7, 3:43 remaining in the first half, and now it's the Vixen who will need to answer down 7. Well, that's a heck of a job by the Cali War offense. First, the defense comes up with a big stop inside the 5 to keep it at 7-6, and then the War go 97 yards, and that was not, as is often the case with the War, a relatively short drive, even of that distance. Maybe you get a huge run from Brianna Barrett, turn it into a short field. That was methodical. Working their way up the field. Rhodes, a little trouble on the return, but now turns the corner. Nobody gonna catch Shy Rhodes. She's gone. We do have a flag down. Let's see if some of this is coming back and how much. But there was initially some trouble for Rhodes handling the football, but then finds the edge. And we've talked about the speed of Brianna Barrett. But I'll tell you, I don't know that anybody has shown more flat speed. Straight line down that far sideline than Shy Rhodes. For the Vixen, unfortunately, the touchdown comes off the board as it was an illegal block on the return. And so Rhodes denied the touchdown return, and instead the Vixen will start from their own 35, still down 14-7. But that was electric from Shy Rhodes. Kuplick, first down carry, sweeping to the far side and ridden out of bounds after a gain of about 3. That is a good open field tackle. Kenesha Moore over on the right side, and Moore able to slow down Kuplick. Kuplick at 5'5", 200 pounds, and a hard runner. But Allen able to slow her down, bring her down for a gain of just a couple. Kuplick straight ahead, a gain of about 7, very near the first down marker, but a little bit shy. 6 yards will leave a 3rd and 2. Jones on the stop. And a big 3rd down play upcoming for the Vixen. Just saw the War offense want to maintain a drive to spell their defense, and certainly for the Vixen here, down 7, but also wanting to continue this drive. They will. Rhodes with all kinds of running room into the War secondary, has the first down. Brought down at the 39 of Cali. Good enough for a first down for Shy Rhodes, who's had a big first half. The touchdown return taken off the board notwithstanding. Timeout on the field. 2-minute warning from Playa del Rey. The War on top 14-7. The WFA playoffs on SoCalCollegeSports.com. First and 10 from the War 40 for the Vixen, with Cali on top 14-7. The WFA playoffs here on SoCalCollegeSports.com, 1 of 4 going on here tonight. The winner of this one in action next week. Rhodes sweeping to the near side, warding off the tackle of Robinson, brought down by Caldwell. A run of 7 yards for Rhodes leaves a 2nd down and 3. Also in action, St. Louis, the Slam at home tonight to take on the Nebraska Pride. And the undefeated Slam, the top seed in the National. Rhodes running right, has the first down. Brought down after a gain of about 5. Takes it to the 25. Clock moving. Now it stops with 1:22. The Vixen have all 3 timeouts. 1:17 and counting, as now it is winding. It stopped momentarily just to move the chains. Now back in action. Kuplick. A little trouble on the exchange, but Kuplick able to get some forward momentum and pick up solid yardage. Ends up picking up 7 yards again. Caldwell there for the stop. But following Cecilia Burba-Cook, straight up the middle of the center for the Vixen, Kuplick on a 2nd and short, bounces off a tackle, a flag in the Vixen backfield, down to 40 seconds. Initially, Kuplick appeared to have enough for the first down, but this might be coming back. And again, the Vixen, all 3 timeouts, so down to 40 seconds, but certainly still Plenty of options for Connor Lewis. And this Vixen offense, as they will mark off the penalty, it's a holding call. 2nd down and 13. They'll move it back to the 30. And now a timeout taken. Timeout on the field. Cali on top, 14-7. Second down and 13 from the War 30. Kuplick remains in the backfield. 3 wide receivers for the Vixen. Kelly has it. Quick throw on the slant. Complete. Big hit near the first down marker. Catch is made. And now they want to work quickly. It was Lundberg on the reception. And watch here as Lundberg absorbs the big hit, but holds onto the football and appears to have enough for the first down. Kuplick running left, looking for the edge, out of bounds, has the first down, or I should say on the first down carry. A pickup of about 5, down to 21 seconds. Still all 3 timeouts for the Vixen. It was the War that actually burned the timeout moments ago. Seven yards for Kuplick. Well, looks a little more like about 5. They'll spot it at the Cali 10-yard line. Do have an injury down on the field. And Cali and the Vixen offense not going to miss an opportunity for a quick huddle. And 21 seconds as they look at a War player down. We'll step aside very quickly from Playa del Rey with the War leading at 14-7. Second down and 4 from the War 9-yard line. Down to 21 seconds. Kuplick on the carry. Makes a little move inside the 5. She's got the touchdown. Second touchdown in the first half for Kuplick. And the Vixen back within a point at 14-13. Watch the quick feet from Kuplick. Little move right there coming up. If we let this run, they were looking there, maybe got away with a hold. But obviously, Paige Kuplick, tremendous after contact, but they're able to slip by Alyssa Williams. And in for the touchdown, the 9-yard run. And now we are an extra point away from a tie. Just got over the crossbar. Might have been partially blocked, but it's through. And tied at 14. Now with just 14.9 remaining. Well, you go back to the previous meetings between these two teams as we'll keep it here, get ready for the kickoff. Again, just the 3-point game earlier in the regular season, but going back to 2023, that was a 3-point win for the Vixen, 35-32. In the playoffs in 2022, a 6-point win for the Vixen. And in fact, the blowout, if you will, in the history of this matchup, all the way back in 2021, when the Vixen pulled away for a massive 11-point win at 33-22. It has always been close, seemingly, between these two teams, and here we are with 14 seconds remaining in the first half, all tied once again at 14. Well, obviously here for the Vixen, the mandate is going to be to somehow keep this ball out of the hands of Brianna Barrett. No, they're going to launch this one, but a good spot up over the head of Williams and now out of bounds. And do the War have the option here perhaps to make them re-kick? Or might they just settle for heading to the locker room, all tied at 14 in a very even first half in every way, beyond the scoreboard even. And again, one turnover apiece for the two teams. Penalties, not much of a storyline in this one for either team. And both teams have been much more stout defensively in this second matchup, but also have managed to put together a couple of scoring drives apiece. So we've seen it all here in the first half, and we're only halfway through this one. Wiggins will come out with an empty backfield. The War with just one timeout remaining, but the pivotal number, the clock, 14.9 seconds, and Wiggins gonna air it out. Has Barrett behind the Vixen defense. Barrett on the run, one man to beat, down the far side, she's gone. But there is a flag down. This one gonna go against the War in the War backfield. Another simply electric play taken off the board. We saw the return from Rhodes earlier, erased by a penalty, so perhaps I spoke too soon. Maybe penalties have been more of a storyline in this first half. And there is a great look at the call. And yeah, just a handful of jersey. That's a no-doubter and a good call, certainly. Now the question becomes, as it was Brianna Irby, might Wiggins still have had enough time to get that ball off? There's no way you can know that if you're Brianna Irby, obviously. But a great look at it. And for Brianna Irby, who has been outstanding all season long, left tackle, interestingly about Irby, a long history in both dance and cheerleading, and talked about how she ultimately is able to pick up the plays and learn the plays from her left tackle spot by applying some of the 8-count methodology that is so often used in some of the dancing that she's done throughout her lifetime. Said that has really helped her to pick up what they're trying to do offensively, but that time the holding call against Irby ultimately takes the touchdown off the board, and we head to the locker room halftime from Playa del Rey. The Vixen and the War tied at 14, the WFA playoffs, here on SoCalCollegeSports.com.
It's playoff weekend on the Road of Champions. Welcome to the Road to Champions. I'm your host, Brian Sweeney, the voice of the Women's Football Alliance Pro Division National Championship game. Alex Wested and myself cannot wait to talk playoff football. But first, let's look back at the Week 8 scores and highlights. The St. Louis Slam finished back-to-back perfect regular seasons when they went into Indiana and took care of the Valor by a score of 64-6. The Tampa Bay Inferno finished the regular season at 2-4 for the second straight season with a Week 8 loss to the West Palm Beach Coyotes, final score 26-13. And in pro versus pro games, the Dallas Elite Mustangs completed their season with a much better showing against in-state rivals, the Houston Energy. In the end, however, the Energy was too strong and handed the Mustangs a 14-12 loss. The DC Divas ended their 25th season with their best record and first winning record since the COVID-canceled season of 2020. This time over the Philly Phantoms, final score 55-0. The Minnesota Vixen went into Nebraska to face the Pride. For Minnesota, a win was needed to make sure their last losing season stayed back in 2012. Nebraska was looking to get their first win against Minnesota. In the end, Minnesota shut out the Pride for the second straight season, this time 35-0. Alex, Minnesota, Nebraska, and DC are the only Pro Division teams to play an all-Pro Division schedule. How important is this for the rest of the Pro Division moving forward into 2026?
In a 6-game schedule, Brian, I don't think it's that important. I think it's important you want to be able to play the best competition and have that experience against them in a regular season format before you might run into them into the postseason. But in that 6-game small sample size, it's not so much who you play, and certainly St. Louis in the schedule, they have proved that. Cali is in the exact same boat in terms of how that's concerned. Tampa still in the playoffs despite not playing a fully pro schedule. But you really like, again, to have those head-to-head matchups early on. Does it matter? No. What matters is the score and how badly you beat a team by, not as much who it is that you're playing. If there were an 8, 10, 12-game schedule, different conversation. But here in 6, I don't think as much.
And in the first of 2 games of the week, the Pittsburgh Passion finished with back-to-back winning seasons when they gave us a look at D2 powerhouse, the Cincinnati Cougars. When the clock hit 0, the Passion showed the Cougars that the pro level is a battle by winning 59-26. Alex, for the first half, this game was a back-and-forth battle. In fact, broadcaster Matt Fargo said that this game could catch the Minnesota-Cali game from 3 weeks ago for total points scored. In the end, though, Marcelina Chavez played an amazing game for the Passion, and their defense slowed down the rushing of Kiana Williams. Do you still feel the Cougars are ready to make the jump to the Pro Division?
Well, first of all, I'm a big Matt Fargo guy. It's hard not to be. You look at this game, though, and the pace of it, if it does get to that point, you have concerns, again, about both teams' defenses. Not so much as the game progressed. You were looking for that dominant, decisive home game that we hadn't seen from Pittsburgh yet this season, and arguably dating back to last year's postseason. This was it. Are you concerned about the first half play? Maybe. Not as much, though, and looking at how Makai Chavez played this game, looking at how the ball was able to move on the ground through the air against a pretty good defensive unit in Cincinnati. Remember, Cincinnati entering this game was ahead of Pittsburgh in the Massey ratings. What that stands for, in terms of games being played on the computer versus on the field itself, that worked better in Pittsburgh's favor. I really liked what I saw out of the Passion. And in terms of Cincinnati, again, the growth is there. The question is there. Can they sustain this at the Pro Division level? I certainly think that they can. They have the ability to. And now, even with this loss against Pittsburgh, their road in Division II is tough. But Pittsburgh all of a sudden proves that we finally got to see a real Pittsburgh Passion performance here. Dominating defense when they needed to, and an offense that could run a track meet up and down the field. They look in a good spot for the first time this season at home heading into this postseason.
And in the second game of the week, the Nevada Storm hosted the Mile High Blaze. In the end, this game gave both teams a .500 record for 2 of the last 3 seasons. Final score, Mile High over the Storm, 35-13. Alex, with a new head coach this season, Nevada improved over last season, both in wins and allowing 50 fewer points throughout the course of the season. For the Blaze, they are still looking for that one player to get them to the next level. your thoughts on how this game ended.
If there's anything, Brian, that Road of Champions is, it's a show about accountability. Earlier this season, I declared the Mile High Blaze dead in the water. We'll talk about their postseason hopes coming up here in a couple of segments. But this is a Mile High team that offensively had nothing going for them. Offensively looked as clueless as I've seen them look in terms of their time at the pro division level. But all of a sudden, watching this film back, you had a running game that was working well on both sides. The Nevada Storm couldn't do anything to contain the rushers. And you think about that first touchdown for Mile High in this game, a beautiful outside edge rush where you take advantage of a defense that wasn't ready for it. This was a surprising result from an offense that we hadn't seen put more than 20 points up against anybody of note here this season. All of a sudden, they dropped 35 on the road in Nevada. What's going on? I ask the same question, too, for Nevada. This is a game that, in terms of watching this game, in terms of seeing this game, there was a lot of things that I had concerns with for Nevada. Yes, you have a new head coach. Yes, you have this new system. But in terms of places where Nevada's been really good, it's been at home. And to give up 35 points and only be able to put up 13 yourself, this is still a one-score game within reason at halftime. And all of a sudden, for Nevada, you had a driver's seat spot into the postseason, and you blow it. And that, to me, Jessie Felker's a great quarterback. She made the All-American roster again this year. But to me, Nevada should have done better here. Did they? No. And that's the heartbreaking part for the fans in Reno. But for Mile High, proving the critics wrong and making a postseason berth out of it, great job to Denver.
We'll be right back to look at the Division III playoff bracket. Welcome back. It's playoff season, and each week we will not only look at the Pro Division, but the Division II and Division III playoff picture as well. Let's take a look now at the Division III playoff matchups. The 6-0 Oklahoma Rage will host the 4-2 Sioux Falls Snow Leopards. Having missed the playoffs last season, the Snow Leopards are looking to rebound from a first-round exit in 2023. The Rage are looking to make it to the conference championship in back-to-back seasons. The 3-3 Rocky Mountain Thundercats host the 2-4 Wasatch Warriors. These teams met in the last week of the regular season, with the Thundercats coming out on top 28-0. The 6-0 Richmond Black Widows welcome the 5-1 Upstate Lady Predators. After only 3 combined wins in the 24 season, both teams are looking for a strong playoff push. And the 5-1 Connecticut Ambush welcome the 4-2 Music City Misfits. Last season, both teams failed to make the playoffs. Alex, we have 5 teams in the Division III playoff race this year that failed to make the playoffs in 2024. Which of these teams has the best chance of making it to camp?
Well, looking just based solely on records, you look at Oklahoma, you look at Richmond, and you figure those two teams have the straightest shot. What's important to remember about Division III is that, one, Division III has a lot of parity in it, where you could go realistically anywhere and play anybody at any time in that same level, and you don't really know what that outcome's going to be. Yes, there's a gap between the top teams of Division III and the bottom teams of Division III, but that parity still exists. The second part you have to look at with these records and these schedules is who these teams are playing. You look at that Rocky Mountain and Wasatch game where you have 2 teams that are both in the Rocky Mountains, both playing at altitude, and both play very difficult schedules with Division II and with pro teams. I like the team that comes out of the West in this bracket overall. I certainly think that Sioux Falls continues to develop at a time where, yes, you could have folded up shop, but Sioux Falls continues to develop that program, and it's a really good job of what they've done. And looking out into the East, you look at teams like Music City and Nashville, where they've had such a great strength and building and legacy of the Music City Misfits out in Nashville. But again, whether it's Wasatch, and again, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly because I'm not familiar with the geography of Idaho and Nevada, but there's little things here and there that you really like about each of these teams, offensively, defensively, and of course, it always comes down to turnovers in Division III.
Now let's look at the Division II playoff bracket. The 6-0 Salt Lake City Wildcats host the 4-2 New York Knockout. Last season, New York made it to the postseason, but was eliminated in the first round. The 3-3 New Mexico Bonitas host the 2-4 Derby City Dynamite. Last season, New Mexico was the runners-up in the D3 championship and still made the jump to the D2 level. The 6-0 Baltimore Nighthawks host the 4-2 West Palm Beach Coyotes. Both teams made it to the playoffs last season, with the Coyotes losing in the national championship. And the 5-1 Cincinnati Cougars welcome the 4-2 Atlanta Rage. These teams met in the middle of May, with the Cougars getting the win. Alex, Salt Lake, West Palm Beach, and Baltimore each have wins this season over a Pro Division team. How much is that going to help them as they play in the Division II playoffs?
It should. In terms of structure, that's the big thing you look at, where you talk about these teams at the top flight of Division II and all the way up at WFA Pro, where they have that same style of offense. Run game complements the pass game. Defense throws in extra blitzes, throws in extra pass protection to try to confuse a quarterback. There's some really good things that you see there with that pro level. But you have to remember, Brian, this is Division II. You're still playing that Division II team. There should be some film available. Take advantage of that. You look at these teams, especially in home field, Baltimore, Cincinnati, New Mexico, and Salt Lake. Particularly with New Mexico, that home field advantage, forcing a team to head out from Louisville, Kentucky, all the way out to New Mexico, that is not an easy trip to make. Certainly with the weather, that's a whole other wrinkle to that matchup. I said a couple of weeks ago that Salt Lake, Cincinnati figured to be the prohibitive favorite matchup in terms of what we'll call on Friday night in Canton, Ohio. With Cincinnati losing to not losing to Baltimore, but losing that home field spot to Baltimore, I don't know that that's going to be as straight of a walk as it should be. Salt Lake probably comes out of the West. We know that. But in terms of looking out east, where you have New York, Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Atlanta, you can make a good argument for each of those four teams as why they'll be playing in Canton, Ohio. Personally, home field advantage is big in the WFA, especially at Division II. We'll see if Baltimore is able to ride that storm out.
Now let's look at the Pro Division matchups. The reigning national champions St. Louis Slam and their 6-0 record welcome the 4-2 Nebraska Pride. This will be the first ever meeting of these two teams. The 3-3 Minnesota Vixen are back in Cali to play the 5-1 Cali War. This game's location was decided in the Massey ratings by only 1/100th of a point. When these teams faced off at the beginning of June, they combined for 125 points, the most ever in a Pro Division game. The 5-1 Pittsburgh Passion hosts the 3-3 Mile High Blaze. The Passion are looking to get back to their second straight conference championship game, and the Blaze are looking for their first since joining the pro level. And the 4-2 DC Divas host the 2-4 Tampa Bay Inferno. The Divas are hoping to get their first postseason win since 2018. Alex, this looks to be some great football, especially some of these matchups that we've never seen before, like Mile High and Pittsburgh. Your thoughts on who moves on to the conference finals?
Well, when we recorded the Week 8 episode of Road to Canton here in the studio, it's a different road now than what we expected it to be when we recorded this show because of that Nevada Mile High game. And you look at these matchups and you have your 1-4 that you look at as a typical, you don't want to say a trap game because you treat each opponent with respect, but to me, I look at this as a trap game. For me, in the East, it's how does Pittsburgh continue that great run of form that they had against Cincinnati to end their season at home? How does Mile High keep the surprise going and keep their offense going? We know their defense is great, and we know that defense travels in the postseason. Can it do so across multiple time zones and to a Pittsburgh offense that already seems to have things figured out? Same too out in the West, where you have St. Louis taking on Nebraska. And this is a matchup that's relatively close in proximity to each other, but is also very interesting just because you don't know what you're going to see out of Nebraska. You don't know what you're going to see out of St. Louis, having not played a pro-level opponent since they defeated Minnesota up here in the Twin Cities a couple of weeks ago. And so you don't know what you're going to get out of that. But then you also have the exciting air raid matchup of Cali and Minnesota that's going to be another instant classic. You have DC and Tampa, which figures to be another great game. And you look at the 8 teams in this postseason, Brian, I could give you a reason for each of the 8 to make the championship in Canton, Ohio, and each of the 8 to miss the championship in Canton, Ohio. That's how close the WFA pro level is this year. And frankly, for the league, it's a good thing. You want markets invested. You want teams to all feel like they have a chance. You don't want one team beating the doors off of everybody. One, because it's not good football. Let's call that what it is. 2, it gives more opportunities for more markets to get involved and more markets to get invested. We saw a classic last year with Boston and St. Louis in the national championship. I expect each of these postseason matchups this year in 2025 to be the exact same.
We'll be right back. Lois Cook continues her series of interviews with the stars that make up the WFA Pro Division. This week, sitting down with Nisha Washington of the Nevada Storm in her segment, A Timeout with Lo.
My name is Nisha Washington. I play offensive line and inside linebacker for the Nevada Storm.
Handoff up the middle, has a hole, a big hole. She's still on her feet and just bowls her way through on that one. Touchdown Storm.
Why do you play football? Football has always been my dream sport. Come from a family of sports. My parents both were athletes. My dad played Division I football. He coached football my whole life.
The Vixen will have it to start the second half. All tied at 14. One score to report. The Pittsburgh Passion are through a win earlier today in their playoff matchup over the Mile High Blaze. It's 48-6. So the Passion on, and they await the winner of the DC Divas and the Tampa Bay Inferno over in the American Division. And interesting, if DC, who is the favorite on paper in that one, if they win, that'll be a rematch of a great matchup between Pittsburgh and DC back on June 7th. That was a 3-point win for the Divas, handing the Passion their only loss on the season. So keep an eye on that side of the bracket. The kickoff to start the third quarter out of bounds. Good field position upcoming for the Vixen as they'll get things started here in the third quarter. But just as we're seeing a rematch here of a tremendous matchup from earlier in the season, perhaps over on the other side of the bracket, it'll be a chance for the Passion to avenge their lone loss of the season with an awful lot on the line. As the playoff pressure will only amp up as we move forward. This just the opening round. And then there's the undefeated St. Louis Slam in action tonight against the Nebraska Pride. And the Pride with a big job in front of them, trying to knock off the Slam, who remain undefeated, coming up just short a season ago, a loss in the championship against the Boston Renegades, but trying to finish the job this year under sensational quarterback Jamie Gall. 25 touchdowns, no interceptions on the season for Gall and that high-flying Slam offense. And the winner of this one gets the winner of the Pride Slam matchup going on right now. Kuplik running left with all kinds of room. Kuplik has the first down, cuts it back now into the open field, slips out of one more tackle, makes a little move at the 35. Kuplik is gone. What a start to the third quarter. And Kuplik continues to love life in Playa del Rey after the 5 touchdowns on June 7th. 60 yards on that scamper. And again, the power running from Kuplik, but the fast feet as well. A good open field move. Springs her the rest of the way. It starts with great blocking up front and not a whole lot of contact, but now Kuplik with the vision. There, the strength to break out of one tackle and then into the open field. And Kuplik can celebrate that one. Extra point is good, and the Vixen on top early going third quarter, 21-14. It's the WFA playoffs on SoCalCollegeSports.com. Well, you watch the replay of the run by Kuplik, and one of the things that has to impress you about that run is you can see the obvious strength for Kuplik, and you don't want to try to go for tackles, certainly up high against a power runner like Paige Kuplik, but there was a good effort to get to the legs and steal the strength from Kuplik to run through that tackle and break even the lower attempts at the lower body. And it's a combination of the power and the quick feet from Paige Kuplik. 60 yards on the touchdown run. Early in the third, the Vixen, who trailed it by 7 in the second quarter, but came up with the big drive late in the first half to tie it and then take the opening kick one play. 60 yards for a touchdown, and they have grabbed the lead again at 21-14. Washington behind Wiggins, gets the handoff, runs through a tackle at the line of scrimmage and picks up about 4 yards. Out to the 44. Kaylee Damison with the tackle. It leaves a 2nd and 6 from the 45. Well, the defenses have certainly shown up here tonight for both these teams, but against the two leading offenses in the WFA, these two teams 1 and 2 in yards per game. How long can you keep it up before the points start coming in bunches? Williams on the carry, not much doing, gets back to the line of scrimmage. Strung out well again by Tanner. No gain for Williams, leaves a big 3rd and 6 from the 45, and again, the stakes so high, and they'll only get higher as we move on here in the second half. And the War certainly will run 2 plays from here. But they need 6 yards to continue the drive down 7 early going third quarter. Barrett in the slot on the right side. Offset I formation. Snap to Wiggins. They'll go to Washington. Good push on the left side, and Washington near the first down marker. Come down to the spot. Culhane with the tackle, and Washington's about a half a yard shy. And the War 0 of 2 on 4th down tonight. And a big one here, 4th and less than a yard from midfield. They want to move quickly. The snap to Wiggins. Washington runs into her own man. Now this will come down to the spot. It looked as though Washington had enough for the first down initially, but then bounced back. Let's see where they ultimately spot this. And this is going to go the Vixens' way. Let's watch here. And yeah, trying to follow on that left side. And that is a tough break for the War, as it looked as though Washington was going to be able to pick up the first down. But following her left guard, I believe it was Layla Rivers. And it was Rivers, as much as anyone, who stalled the momentum on that play. As Washington runs up behind Rivers one more time. Nope. I think we're going to get a look here. And yeah, nope. Actually, better look. It's Francine Loya. Yeah, Loya sliding over from the center spot. And as Washington tried to hit that hole, ran into the back of Francine Loya. And that allowed the Vixen to get there and bring Washington down. They needed a half a yard. They didn't get it. The War now 0 of 3 on 4th down tonight. First down carry for Kuplik for 5. Leaves a 2nd down and 5. Well, now an opportunity for the Vixen. Up 7. And with a relatively short field. Here already at the War 45. 2nd down and 5. You can be sure that the Vixen aren't going to get ahead of themselves here tonight. Again, they had an 11-point lead with less than 2 minutes remaining here on June 7th in the regular season matchup. And somehow The War were able to put a couple of touchdowns on the board. This one knocked down at the line, caught by Rhodes on the deflection. Little move from Rhodes, now trying to drag the pile. Doucette there finally drags Shy Rhodes down. An improbable gain of 3 will leave a 3rd down and 2. Let's watch here as Rhodes in the right place at the right time, as this one is batted in the air. We'll come back, and Rhodes comes away with it and then has the presence to shed a couple of tackles and pick up 3 yards. So 3rd and 5 potentially, or even worse, turns into 3rd and 2 as Rhodes is able to make it a reception and a gain of 3. Rhodes, nowhere to go, hit and driven back. It'll bring up 4th down. A great job in the interior of that War defensive line. Frazier and Rivers, and ultimately finished off by Jennifer Nunez. But it can be tough to find room up the middle, and none there for Rhodes. A loss of a yard, and now it's the Vixen who will face a 4th down, a 4th and 3 from the War 43. Can the War defense come up with a huge stop here? They'll overload the far side. Kuplick on in the backfield. 4th and 3. It's Kuplick on the give. Hit and brought down. No gain on the play, and the War with the big stand defensively. They'll get it back. Who else? It was Happy. Antoinette Borders Frazier. A wall on the interior of that defensive line. Nowhere to go for Kuplick, who has put together another big effort, but not that time. Back-to-back big plays by that War defensive line. And they turn the Vixen away. Get it back, 10:03 remaining in the 3rd quarter. Still a 7-point game. Well, there have been some twists and turns already tonight, but remember that right there. That was a big play from the War defense when they needed it badly. Washington forced out of bounds by Tanner after a gain of 3. Leaves a 2nd and 7. The War have it at their own 46. Washington in the backfield, along with Allen, who is now split out to the left. Wiggins looks over the Vixen defense, has the snap. Barrett cuts it back, finds some running room. Big collision with Caitlin Hove. Hard running from Brianna Barrett. 10-yard run will move the chains. And Barrett, who essentially has the option as she gets the handoff, and no doubt has to make the read on whether to continue and bring that outside or cut it back. That time follows Francine Loya again, finds some running room. And then the big collision with Hove, who does get the tackle, but not before the War have the 1st down. Washington off tackle on the right side. Hit and brought down after a gain of 4 to the Vixen 40. Culhane with the tackle. And again, we talk about both defenses here, but the tackling much more sure tonight for the Vixen. And credit to this Minnesota Vixen defense. Connor Lewis has gotten his team ready to play. They have the 7-point lead, but the War as well struggles certainly defensively, slowing down the Vixen running game. And they've been much better tonight. They trail it by 7. But both defenses having a much better time of it Washington bounces it to the right. A gain of 7. Preliminarily, they're not moving the chains yet. It looked like she had enough. Let's see if they move. No, it looks like Nori Washington needed 6 yards, and he got about 5 yards and 2 feet. So it leaves a 3rd and inches, and that is no sure thing here tonight. A timeout on the field, 7:17 remaining in the 3rd quarter. Vixen leading it by 7. The War on the move. You're on SoCalCollegeSports.com. Third and a foot for the War. Sean Caldwell on in the backfield. Short yardage package for the War. Need a foot. They'll go to Barrett on the end around. Barrett slipping out of a couple of tackles in the backfield. She's still on her feet. Stiff arms a man. She's around the side on the right side. Still on her feet. Slips out of another tackle. She's going to take it in for a touchdown. That is a sensational individual effort for Brianna Barrett. I mean, wow. She's in all kinds of trouble here. Somehow gets out of a couple of tackles. And then out on the edge, one-on-one with Bostic, able to ward her off. And not done yet. Gustafson, Hove have shots as well, but no one can stop Brianna Barrett. And on a 3rd and short, she breaks the long run to get the War back within a point. They will line up to go for 2. Looking for the lead. They fake the pitch. Now to the slant, broken up. Looking for Barrett. Hove with the coverage. Breaks it up. We saw a lot of Hyber last week. Or I should say in the last matchup between these two teams. It was Nikki Hyber out defending at the corner spot with the absence of Caitlin Hill. And Hove certainly stepping into a larger role as well that time. Able to defend the pass for Barrett. And again, conversion's going to be so big here. And you look here at Barrett, the numbers spectacular, and the total yards, 1,566. And early on, a lot of them came through the air. Barrett working primarily as a receiver, but as this season has worn on, has become more and more of a tailback for this team, despite working from the outside primarily in terms of where she lines up, but handling a lion's share of the running duties. And has become more of a feature back for this team. Nearly 1,000 yards over the last 3 weeks alone. And has become less of a focal point, certainly in the passing game. That time they tried to find her on the quick slant. Broken up. There is Hyber on the return. And the Vixen will go to work still with the lead. 21-20. And in a game that continues to have its back and forth, its ebb and flow. Another big play to keep in mind with 6:33 remaining in the 3rd quarter. The conversions are big. Right now the War 1 of 3 on 2-point conversions, and that has them down a point in a game that you better believe could come down to a single point before it's all said and done. Anderson in motion. Snap to Kelly. Kuplik running left. Looking for the edge. She's got it. Cuts it back. Still on her feet. Twisting forward and appears to have enough with second effort for the first down. An 11-yard run for Kuplik immediately moves the chains. Well, it's a stern challenge for both defenses between Brianna Barrett and Paige Guplick. And the relentless way that they run the football. So much yardage after contact for both backs. And you have the sense as we watch moving forward here, 5:33 and counting remaining in the third quarter, that it has a wearing effect on the defenses. And we saw that back on June 7th, where both teams really got it going, trying to thread it in, looking for Jefferson, and the pass incomplete. Good coverage for Kenesha Moore. Leaves a 2nd and 10. But it was an offensive explosion, certainly in the fourth quarter, back on June 7th. As both teams went for well over 20 points in the fourth quarter. I want to say there were 8 touchdowns in the fourth quarter between the two teams. And you wonder if that will be the case here tonight, ultimately, as these two rushing offenses certainly set a grueling pace and can wear down an opposing defense. 60 minutes of trying to bring down Brianna Barrett and Paige Guplick. No easy assignment. 5 yards for Guplick and a 3rd and 5 for the Vixen from the War 42. Big third down for the Vixen as both teams have struggled on fourth down here tonight. Kelly gonna throw. Catch is made, finds Dvorak. First reception for Dvorak. Has the first down inside the War 30. They'll spot it at the 30. 12 yards for Dvorak. Dvorak quietly had a big game back on June 7th in the first matchup between the two teams. 4 catches for 60 yards, but a couple of touchdowns. As Kelly, overall, had a big performance throwing the football, throwing for 232 yards and 4 touchdowns while we're talking about the running games for the two teams. EK put together a big performance for the Vixen and had them on the doorstep of a win here in Playa del Rey before the heroics of Barrett late pulled out the win for the War. 1st and 10 from the 30. Lundberg on the screen, slips a tackle, has another first down. Block from Dvorak. Jocelyn Howard with the tackle, but Lundberg picks up 11 yards. Watching here one more time, and Dvorak with the block on Moore. Springs Lundberg for 11 yards. Vixen in the red zone. Kelly starting to warm to the task, throwing the football. Pop flies looking for Dvorak, and it's picked off. Big interception for the War on their heels, but they come up with the massive turnover. Ibarra with the pick on an ill-advised throw from Aaron Kelly, and those are few and far between for Aaron Kelly, who has just 3 interceptions on the season. This is her 4th. And Ibarra and Williams appeared to have the bracket coverage on Dvorak, and it's a tight window, and that ball hangs up in the air, and that gives Ibarra enough time to close. A little bit underthrown, and the sure hands from Ibarra. And yet another potentially critical play in a 1-point game as the Vixen were rolling, moving the football, had it into the War red zone. But Kelly looking for 6 for Dvorak in the end zone, but it's Ibarra with the interception. The War will have it at their own 4-yard line, but still within a point.
Still waiting. Gonna keep it here. Wind is picking up, and you certainly saw a lot of effect on the last throw from Kelly. That one hung up. I don't know if this is a clock issue or... Okay. So they are going to reset the clock. Well, right now it's at 7:01. We know that's not right. So they'll work on that. We'll step aside very quickly. Late third. Vixen on top, 21-20. The Women's Football Alliance playoffs here on SoCalCollegeSports.com. Now set to go, 2:50 remaining in the third quarter. And the War will go to work from their own 4-yard line. Second turnover tonight for the Vixen. And a chance to extend on that slim 1-point margin, washed away with the turnover. Wiggins, the give straight ahead. Washington, good hole. Little breathing room for the War, a pickup of 6 yards. Leaves a 2nd down and 4. Washington, a couple of rushing touchdowns here tonight. Barrett with the other. Kuplick, another big performance for the Vixen with 3 rushing touchdowns. They'll empty out the backfield on 2nd and 4. Keep an eye on Barrett on the right side. Wiggins going to look to throw. Locks in. This one nearly picked off, and now it is. Hove tried to jump the route, missed it, and it ends up off the hands of a receiver again in the arms of Gustafson. Let's watch here again. This is a dangerous throw, and Hove had a beat on that football and missed it, and that might have ultimately still been to the benefit of the Vixen as it gets through Hove but off the hands of Williams, who obviously has a little more difficulty tracking that football. Watch as it gets by Hove, and Gustafson with the good hands. So they trade turnovers once again. We saw that in the first half as well. Now each team with a couple of turnovers. And the Vixen get it back, a big play from their defense. They'll have it at the War 30 again, looking to extend on this 1-point lead. Stretch play to Kuplick, who again has a lot of room on the left side near the first down marker. Boy, that is a great push on the left side. And there, I believe that's Anderson. And no flags as Anderson holds that block. The Vixen will take it. 10 yards for Kuplick. Moves it into the red zone once again at the 19-yard line. Kuplick on the pitch. Moore up high. Manages to wrestle Kuplick down after a gain of 3. 2nd and 7. Well, that's not making the job easy. But again, as we talked about earlier in this one, while it might be tempting to think about trying to get at the legs of Paige Kuplick rather than trying to challenge her up high on the tackle, she's done a pretty good job making people miss on those attempts to get to her legs. And that time Moore brings her down after a gain of 3. 2nd down and 7. Rhodes back on, running left.
Trying to pop it outside. Robinson not going to get there. The speed of Rhodes again. Forced out of bounds near the first down marker. And just a good individual effort getting around Jamie Robinson. And forced out of bounds near the first down marker. And it's a tough assignment in the open field for the veteran Jamie Robinson. Can't quite get Rhodes wrapped up. Now Brianna Barrett going to check in for Smitty Jones in the backfield. So Barrett on in the defensive backfield as the third quarter will run out. Through 3. The Vixen on the doorstep, leading it 21-20 as we head to the fourth quarter. The WFA playoffs here on SoCalCollegeSports.com. Third and a foot from the War 9 for the Vixen as we start the fourth quarter. First down handoff. And it'll come down to the spot, but no movement yet. That is the first carry for Johanna Vermeulen. Vermeulen, who carried an awful lot of the rushing load early in the season, but has missed a couple of weeks with injury. Returning here tonight. Her first carry, and she didn't get there. So it remains 4th and a yard, and a massive play coming up in a 1-point game. They'll return with Kuplick in the backfield. And again, both of these offenses have struggled here on 4th down tonight. Quick snap to Kelly, and the flags are down. And 4th and 1 is about to become 4th and 6. And that will certainly change the dynamic. But now there's a reaction you can clearly see from the War sideline. So they blew that play dead before it started, and you would assume that 5 yards would be coming up to be marked off, but something has roused that War sideline. And wait and see, they haven't marked off anything yet. And it's potentially a huge call. We're talking about the difference here, 4th and 1, 4th and 6. Changes the dynamic quite a bit, but that football is still at the 10-yard line. So let's see, there you could see pretty clearly there's some movement on the right side of that Vixen offensive line. Maybe a little early, and the flag comes in. In fact, a couple of flags come in, but it's hard to know entirely from up here exactly what the call is, but they're not marking it off, and certainly that drew the reaction from the Cali War sideline. So it remains 4th and 1 from the 10. Kuplick in the deep eye. And Kelly still with some time. Trying to draw the war off, doesn't do it. Kuplik running right, cuts it back. Good hard running Barrett, who came on in the defensive backfield with the tackle on Kuplik, but Kuplik with a hard couple of yards on a 4th and 1 to earn the Vixen a fresh set of downs. Well, a rare 4th down conversion for either offense tonight. And for the Vixen, now a 1st and goal from the 8. Didn't make it easy, but a good job again on that right side. Kuplik getting a couple of yards. Kuplik running left inside the 5, just short of the goal line. Good hard running. 6 yards, 2nd and goal from the 2. Jocelyn Howard, Brianna Barrett, again there quickly. 2nd and goal. Kelly will work under center. Kuplik again solo in the backfield. It's Kelly on the keeper, pushing the pile. You don't see a lot of running from Erin Kelly throughout the season, but following her left guard, Amy Shaver with the push, and Kelly in from 2 yards out, and the Vixen lead is 7. Now with these two offenses, much too early to start thinking in terms of 1 and 2 score games, but they are going to line up to go for the extra point. That'll keep it at 1 score. No matter the result, the kick is up and good. But the Vixen lead it by 8 on the 2-yard touchdown run from Erin Kelly. 28-20, 12:53 remaining. The WFA playoffs here on SoCalCollegeSports.com. War down 8 after the touchdown run for Erin Kelly. Now pooch it short, just over Allen, and Allen just falls on it. Well placed, but still solid field position for the War, who will start from their 38. Let's go back to the big call, the false start, and watch here. Well, we run that one more time. Obviously, you hear the whistles on the movement. Yeah, it's interesting. I hear there the high-pitched sound that maybe could be thought of as a whistle, but that didn't sound like a whistle to me. But obviously, that might have impacted things. It's hard to know exactly down on the field. Wiggins looking deep, throws into double coverage. Bostic with the interception. Big turnover for the Vixen defense. Candace Bostic, the former track star. Outstanding cover corner for the Vixen. Had great coverage on Brianna Barrett and no room for Chantel Wiggins to squeeze in that football. And Wiggins now with a couple of interceptions here in the fourth quarter. Talked about Kelly and the rare interception. Arguably every bit as rare to see Chantel Wiggins struggle with interceptions. The veteran quarterback takes outstanding care of the football. Just one interception on the season coming into the game today. But a couple of interceptions here in the fourth quarter. And now the Vixen with a real opportunity at their own 41 to increase this cushion. They lead it by 8. Kelly, straight drop. Pop flies, looking for Dvorak, and the pass incomplete. Howard with the coverage. 2nd and 10 for the Vixen. Again, the wind pronounced down at field level and can affect a ball, especially one high in the air out of the hands of Aaron Kelly. And that one well off the mark, no chance for Dvorak. Leaves a 2nd down and 10. You know, it's interesting. We talk about Brianna Barrett and the near ridiculous numbers this season over the last few weeks, certainly running the football. But you go back to this Cali War team that has had so much success over the years in the WFA. Rhodes, all kinds of room on the right side, has a first down, twisting out of a couple of tackles, down to the 34-yard line. 25 yards for Rhodes, but there is a flag down back in Vixen territory. But this War team that has had so much success in any number of different ways through the years, and Wiggins back in 2019, 31 touchdowns against just 2 interceptions. A holding call down on the field will wipe away the run by Rhodes. It'll be a spot foul. They'll move it back to the 40-yard line. It'll be 2nd and 12. But yeah, just a few scant years ago, this was an aerial attack for the War, led by Chantel Wiggins, who had a tremendous year for the War with 31 touchdown passes, and now obviously they're working behind a strong running game. Trouble for Rhodes on the pitch. She is in trouble behind the line. Does slip out of one tackle. Tripped up by Jones. Got back to the line of scrimmage. And now it's 3rd and 12, and the War are coming up with a big defensive effort when they badly need it. Going back to 2019, the leading receiver for that War team was the ageless Jamie Robinson with 13 touchdown receptions. Been an outstanding two-way player for a number of years out there at a linebacker spot for this 3rd and 13 play. Let's see if they go to Kuplik to try and get some of it back. No, Kelly going to look to throw. Good protection. Kelly fires deep. Dvorak with the reception. First down, Vixen. Deep in War territory. Howard with the stop, but Dvorak all the way to the 22-yard line on a dart from Aaron Kelly. 39 yards on a 3rd and 13. Well, you can't question the arm strength of Aaron Kelly. A tremendous deep ball. 2nd catch for Dvorak. And arguably no bigger play than that 3rd down conversion. A timeout on the field. The War can't get off the field. 10:35 remaining. The Vixen drive continues, leading at 28-20. First and 10 from the Cali 22 on the 39-yard pass to Dvorak. Kuplik Bouncing it to the outside and pushed out of bounds. Did manage to pick up about 5 yards. And again, that play pretty well strung out by the War defense, but it shows the push they continue to get on the right side. That as that play was forced to the outside, Kuplick was still able to find positive yardage. Meanwhile, looks like Jamie Robinson down again in the Vixen backfield. We'll take an injury timeout, 10-12 remaining. It's the WFA playoffs here on SoCalCollegeSports.com. They'll wind the clock. It's moving, 10:06 and counting. 2nd down and 4 for the Vixen. In the red zone once again, and movement up front. And this time the 5 yards should come off. Five yards. The illegal procedure penalty. 2nd down and 9. The football resting on the 16-yard line of the Cali War. The Vixen on top by 8, looking to go up a couple of scores. Kuplick cut down after a gain of just a couple. Smitty Jones in the backfield. Standout safety. And still down. Jones, another veteran on this Cali War defense. And they're taking a look. Hard to say if this is... Well, we don't want to speculate too much with Jones. It was a big collision, going low and tripping up Kuplick. Limits Kuplick to just a couple of yards, and it brings up a big 3rd and 4. And again, little doubt, but that the Vixen will look to run 2 plays to pick up this 1st down. Rhodes will replace Kuplick in the backfield for the Vixen. Delayed handoff. Rhodes has the 1st down. Barrett still out there defensively. Able to stand Rhodes up. The ball comes out, but the play had been blown dead. Rhodes appeared to have enough for the 1st down, though the chains haven't moved yet. A little tough to tell. And meanwhile, another War player down. Looked like Nunez. Yeah, Jennifer Nunez going to try and get off under her own power. Meanwhile, Rhodes apparently not enough for the 1st down. No movement on the chains. And in fact, she appears to be a couple of yards shy. Needs the 12-yard line. It's at the 14. And a 4th down coming up. Vixen converting on 4th down on the previous drive from just about this spot on the field. Ultimately, Kelly punched it in for the touchdown that has given them this 8-point lead. They face a 4th and a long one with Rhodes in the backfield. Kelly under center, and it's Kelly on the keeper. What a push up front. And Kelly appears to have enough for the 1st down, and does. Aaron Kelly. Behind that great push up front. Meanwhile, Rhodes to the outside, to the goal line, in for a touchdown. Shy Rhodes. The touchdown run puts the Vixen up 34-20 with 8:07 remaining. And Rhodes again with the speed to the corner. Able to get to the pylon. And Rhodes at the tender age of 35 in just her third season. Flashing the speed once again. They'll line up for the extra point. Still perfect. 5 for 5. And the Vixen lead now 35-20. And the War now needs something fairly dramatic. Still a lot of time with 8:07. Certainly the big play potential of Brianna Barrett, but she's not having the same level of success tonight as she did a few weeks ago when she ripped off 452 yards. There have certainly been some flashes, but overall the Vixen have been decidedly more stout defensively. And so the 15-point deficit with 8 minutes remaining is a little more daunting here tonight. But still time, but the War badly need an answer right here. Boy, it is hard to tell here tonight. So many big plays, potentially big calls in this one. And the margins were so thin. You think of certainly the big no call on what could have been a false start that leaves a 4th and 1 instead of a 4th and 6. Barrett now on the return, still on her feet. A little move at the 35. And all the way into Vixen territory at the 46. So they kick it to Barrett. And she immediately makes them pay with a lengthy return. They'll spot it at the 48. Obviously, the turnovers were certainly a big storyline in this one. But I'm looking over at our director here tonight, Mike Cepeda, and we were talking about it. But boy, oh boy, that play at the end of the first half. That one looms large as well. That is a touchdown that unfortunately taken off the board on a penalty. But as we say, so many big plays. And we look at it one more time. And again, the holding call there after Barrett had gotten behind. And for Wiggins, the perfect throw finding Barrett. And that was a lightning strike at the end of the first half that appeared momentarily as though it had given the War the lead heading into the locker room, but instead it comes off the board and you get the big run from Kuplick early in the third quarter that gave the Vixen the lead, and then the Vixen have really picked it up as this second half has gone along and now have opened up a 15-point lead. The incompletion on first down, it's 2nd and 10 from the Vixen 47. But again, that's obviously a huge play, but there have been so many. As we've talked about throughout the broadcast, it has been dramatic ebbs and flows in this one, and both teams coming up with big plays, one after another in this one. And now it's the Vixen who have opened up a little bit of a lead, but can the War come up with an answer? Washington wrapped up after a gain of about 4 on the short reception. Getting there quickly, Paige Conde, who had an interception in the first half, able to sniff that play out and get to Washington quickly. Limits Nori Washington to 5 yards and a big 3rd and 5. Clock moving at 7:10 and counting. Remaining in the ball game. Starts to feel like a must-score drive for the War. Barrett on the end around, slips out of one tackle, but ridden down short of the marker. Good, sure tackling from the Vixen defensively. That time, Sherry Flugel with the good, hard tackle, and we have a player down, and it might be Brianna Barrett. We're trying to get a look there. That was just a good, hard tackle from Flugel, getting on the back of Brianna Barrett and riding her down. And obviously the concern certainly for the physical well-being of Brianna Barrett first and foremost, but perhaps less importantly, a huge impact potentially on the game itself. Brianna Barrett, obviously, far and away the dramatic and huge playmaker for the War throughout the season, and down on the field as we step aside for an injury timeout. 6:41 remaining in the fourth, and the Vixen on top in the WFA playoffs on SoCalCollegeSports.com. And Brianna Barrett up on her feet and walking off under her own power, and obviously that is a great sign and a welcome sign, but still certainly laboring. And by the way she went down and had the weight of Sherry Flugel on her back, obviously we're not going to engage in any kind of meaningful speculation, but you hope that maybe this is just a situation where you get the wind knocked out of you, perhaps fall wrong. Again, a lot of weight on her back with Sherry Flugel flying in there to finish off that play for the Vixen. And Brianna Barrett is heading off somewhat gingerly, but under her own power. And it is incredibly bad timing in every way for the War on the field as they lose Barrett for a huge fourth down play. 4th and 4, back to it. Washington on the carry. Washington breaks a tackle at the first down marker and has enough to move the chains to the 30. So Nori Washington with the big carry on 4th and 4. And for the first time tonight, a fourth down conversion for the War. They look to be working on the lower back of Brianna Barrett. Just in front of us on the trainer's table. And they will certainly attend to Brianna Barrett. As play continues on the field, the War have it at the Vixen 30. Down 15, and now they'll have to go about it without Brianna Barrett. Wiggins looking to throw, dropped by Williams. Not a lot of room for Williams, even if she makes that catch. Paige Conde in the area. 2nd down and 10. Well, obviously a lot falls to Nori Washington and Alyssa Williams. Washington over 300 yards rushing on the season. Has been that second back along with Barrett as this season has worn on. Gets the call here. Again, breaking tackles, dragging tacklers for 9 yards. Leaves a 3rd and 1. 5:18 and counting as the clock moves. The ball at the Vixen 21 and a 3rd and 1. And Williams, who has become the principal target for Wiggins in the passing game, also has been effective in limited use running the football. 8 carries for 143 yards. That's nearly 18 yards a carry When her number's been called, Washington hit immediately and brought down. No movement on the chains. Tanner gets there first. Washington needed a yard. She got a yard. Fresh set of downs. Keep an eye. Brianna Barrett is up off the trainer table. Trying to stretch out what appears to be a back injury. But again, the good sight does appear to be up and okay. Scary for a moment, certainly, as she was motionless on the field. Wiggins pop flies, looking for Williams, who makes the catch down at the goal line. They're going to spot it at the 1. Didn't quite get in, but Wiggins, who has struggled here in the fourth quarter, delivers a strike, finding Williams. Bostic able to touch her down at the 1 to keep her out of the end zone. Washington on the carry, hit in the backfield, brought down for a loss of a yard. Good penetration for the Vixen on the handoff to Washington. Kaylee Damison into the backfield with the tackle. 2nd and goal, the loss of a yard. They stay out of the end zone, but this also costs the War precious seconds as the clock still a factor. 3:07 remaining. Sean Caldwell on in the backfield along with Jamie Robinson. Robinson in the bunch formation on the left side. And this is an area where the War have struggled here tonight in short yardage against this Vixen defense. Saw it there again as they got good penetration, blowing up the play on the give to Washington. 2nd and goal from the 2. They'll try Caldwell. Straight ahead, Caldwell in for the touchdown. On the right side behind Ashley Hayes. And Caldwell with the 2-yard touchdown run, her 4th rushing touchdown on the season, and the War do answer back. But now a huge conversion. 35-26. And without the 2 points here, the War haven't done themselves much good at all, as they'll still be down 2 scores with 2:51 remaining in the game. So this, a must conversion. Well, they'll often look for the slant. You see Williams split out wide to the left. Caldwell will remain in the backfield. Kiara Allen in the offset eye. The War have got to have it. Well, it was a great response from the veteran Chantel Wiggins. It's been a tough fourth quarter for Wiggins against this Vixen defense, but came up with the big pass to Williams to get the War to the doorstep. And eventually Caldwell punched it in from a couple of yards out. Looking for 2, get it back to 1 score. And they are going to go. It was Williams on the quick slant, but it's picked off, and now a foot race, and Hove is going to pick up the 2 points the other way. Well, it could ultimately be important, but really stopping the 2 either way was the critical job for the Vixen defensively. Once they break up that play and keep them out of the end zone, it's still 2 scores. So Hove with the big play certainly, and goes 100 yards the other way to push the lead to 37-26. But obviously, for those watching, the import here is that the War still need 2 scores if they're going to come all the way back in this one. Well read from Caitlin Hove. That's a great job defensively. As again, they wanted to bring Williams in on the slant. Hove jumped that route, and there was nowhere for Wiggins to go. Just has to try to force that ball in. And Hove, who narrowly missed an interception earlier in the fourth quarter, didn't miss that time. Brought it in and takes it 100 yards. And now it's 37-26. And what a moment for the rookie. 2:51 remaining. The Vixen lead now 37-26. Well, big return aside, the job for the War remains the same. That is, they have to somehow get the ball back in short order and put more points on the board. Hyber on the return, secures the football as she goes down at the Vixen 44. The War have all 3 timeouts remaining. But for starters, they need to come up with a stop here. I think despite the veteran status of Erin Kelly and the great job that she does running this offense, taking care of the football, I'll be surprised if we don't see a heavy dose of Paige Kuplick here. See if that Vixen offensive line can move it 10 yards and close this one out. Kuplick running right again with positive yardage, more with the good open field tackle, but Kuplick still picks up 5 yards, as once again Kuplick is about 5 yards downfield before a War defender can get a hand on her. And that is all about the great push up front from that Vixen offensive line that for about 2 minutes shy of 8 quarters has been outstanding against the War this season. So the 2 minute warning will save the War at least one of their timeouts, but the Vixen on the doorstep looking to advance. It's the WFA playoffs on SoCalCollegeSports.com. Second down and 5. War looking for the quick stop, trying to get the ball back. The Vixen trying to close it out. Kuplick. Jones back on after leaving with an injury on the last drive. Drags Kuplick down. Gain of a couple. Leaves a 3rd and 3. Clock still moving now. The War are going to take a timeout. 1:43. Well, it didn't come in right at the end of the play, but the War do burn their first timeout. 1:43 remaining. Vixen on top, 37-26. 3rd down and 3. Kuplick remains in the backfield. They'll overload the far side. Kuplick on the right side, near the 1st down marker. Now with second effort, Kuplick pushing the pile and has enough for the 1st down. Well, initially she was stood up right at the marker, but Kuplick not to be denied. Finally, Nunez brings her down. But 6 yards on a 3rd and 3, and the Vixen with that 1st down might have closed it out. Again, the winner of this one faces the winner of the matchup between the Nebraska Pride and the St. Louis Slam. But the War, who have been eliminated by the Slam in each of the last 2 years in the playoffs, this year look as though they are going to fall short in the opening round, this time against one of their heated rivals, certainly, here in the WFA, the Minnesota Vixen, as Kelly goes to a knee. And for the Vixen, if it is the Slam, it's the St. Louis Slam who have eliminated them in each of the last 2 years. And so if form holds, the Vixen may have another shot at the undefeated St. Louis Slam, as these two teams now start to embrace and wrap it up. The Vixen will get the win 37-26. And obviously these two teams who've seen an awful lot of each other over the last few years renew the rivalry once again. And there's a lot of, obviously, mutual respect for these two teams. And credit to the Vixen, who fell here 3 weeks ago in a dramatic instant classic here in the WFA, 64-61. But they get a shot at redemption coming back to Playa del Rey, and they make the most of it in the playoffs, getting back to their winning ways against the War. 37-26, the final. The Vixen moving on. And where will they be going? Well, they'll wait and find out. And for the War, another solid season, but comes up a little bit short here in the playoffs, falling to the Vixen here tonight. That'll wrap up our coverage here from Playa del Rey. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Once again, the final, Vixen 37, War 26. So long, everybody.